Alright, so we have on Jarl is Zach from Dallas Fort Worth and Adrian Stink Dog from Baton Rouge. So Riptide versus Jarl. This is a very grindy matchup, I'm sure. A lot of blocking, a lot of nothing happening. So I imagine that this game probably ends up going to somewhere close to fatigue, but we'll see how it goes here. Adrian's already used his boots. I don't know if that was because of uh, some Jarl ability or not. No, he was running Flight Path, so target arrow gets go again. And from what I can tell, it was not blown up by anything in particular, so that was just by choice for Adrian. He was just trying to push some damage through, probably. Plan for the worst going out right now. So this is a Riptide specialization that lets you go ahead and you look at your opponent's hand, and then from there you get to go pick some traps that you want, and then they get shuffled, and one of them goes into your hand. We see Everbloom Life, just to gain a little bit of life here. Here's a CNC. Riptide is on Trench. Card is pretty important for him. I think a lot of times he ends up with some junk in his arsenal, especially some traps. A lot of matchups you don't really get a lot of value off the traps, um, so yeah. CNC, no value there, but it does go through for some damage. So here comes a Lace with Blood Rot for Riptide, loading an arrow, presumably. Pitching to the Barb Castaway. It is a Stone Rain, so Stone Rain does have an aim counter on it, so it's going to have Dominate, and on hit, the opponent's going to banish a face down card from their hand. So realistically, I think that the biggest benefit is probably just the Dominate portion. You get to sneak some damage in. It is very difficult for Riptide, I think, to get enough damage in on Jarl. So when you have moments like this, then it is pretty beneficial. So with the Lace with Blood Rot, that's going to be an extra little Blood Rot coming through here. And so Zach is going to have to pay to not take damage, although he's sitting at a healthy 39 life right now, so not the worst in the world. Running Hard Ice in this matchup, so Hard Ice very strong against the defense reaction decks because it's going to cost you 1 to play your defense reactions. Most of Riptide's defense reactions and the traps are free, so realistically you're giving up a lot of damage, a lot of value. So Sledge is, oh my gosh, Sledge is swinging here. And Adrian gonna block for 4 using one of his equipment, and 1 card from hand. A little damage comes through, and that's kind of what we're gonna see for a lot of this matchup. Is just little bits of damage here and there, and then eventually you're gonna reach critical mass, get to about 10 life or so, and no cards left in hand to play for the Blood Rot. So Blood Rot happens, and then the card comes back from Stone Rain. So Adrian now using the sharpshooters. It's gonna put an arrow from your hand face up into your arsenal with the aim counter, and it's going to be Murky Water. This is the Riptide specialization, one of 20,000 specializations that he has. So if it has an aim counter, it gets +1 and Dominate, and on hit you can banish traps from your graveyard, and if you do, put 1 at random into your arsenal. So it does have Dominate, and we're going to see Enlightened Strike cover that up, plus the Rootbound Carapace. It's a red one. I don't know if he has enough to decompose. Yeah, he does. So he banishes 2 Earths and 1 regular action to get a nice little decompose there. Does need a couple more Earth cards, I think. 1 more Earth card in his graveyard in order to turn on Felling of the Crown. Alright, so as usual, activate the Heart of Ice, and then swing the Sledge, block for 6. No damage goes through, but you are slowly chipping away at that deck. We're down to 54 cards, and Riptide usually runs a bit more than 60. So you see 3 cards in hand plus the 13 in graveyard. Puts him at a healthy 70 cards. Barb Castaway going to be activated now. But there was I think it was something else in Arsenal, because he ended up using the Trench and then playing Codex. So using Codex to get another Murky Water. I don't know if that was a sequencing error there or not. But anyway, this Murky Water is going to come in. It has no Dominate, so we're just going to see a block with 2 cards here. Pretty standard fare. And no damage goes through. So for anyone who's joining in, thank you for tuning in. I didn't get a chance to fix the title screen. I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. But here's the felling that we needed. So the Autumn's Touch hit the graveyard last turn, which means there's enough Earth cards in graveyard to go ahead and play Felling from Arsenal. But there was a Codex last turn, so it's only going to come in for 7 as opposed to 8. Still, pretty good. Still going to leak some damage here. Going to require 3 cards total if you want to block all of it. We might just see Adrian just go ahead and take it to the face. Blocking with a Premeditate. So 5 damage going to go through right now. Oh no, there's a Frailty Trap. This attack does not go again, so it's just going to be a raw Frailty Trap for the 3 defense value. And he does have to pay 1 because Hard Vice was activated this turn. So in the pitch zone for Jarl, you did see that there was an Oakenold. Very important for this matchup to just go ahead and start pitch stacking. Get your Oakenolds all in a row. So that way later in the game you can start sending them and chaining them together. And it's very difficult to deal with. This is where Jarl excels. And so if you were an Oldham player back in the day, then you are pretty good at doing this exact thing. Plan for the Worst goes out. Some more traps getting shuffled in. And so even though Adrian was fat decking here, you are starting to see some deck parity starting to happen. So 48 cards in decks for Adrian, 46 cards for Zach. Heart of Ice activated. Time to swing a sledge. Oh, we're actually going to activate gloves? Oh, no. Okay. No gloves activated here. I think he may be trying to figure out exactly how to swing something. Maybe this is an all-red hand. We saw Unforgetting, Unforgiving pitched. This card is not particularly useful in this matchup because you're not going to get a lot of -1 counters on the equipment. I guess you have these 2 things that kind of have -1s early, but either way, I think that Riptide kind of wants to blow them up anyway. So CLF goes down. Something happened here. I think the CLF was supposed to stay out, but I think that the float counter was missed. So it looks like players are going to go back to the last turn, redo this whole thing. So interesting that Zach decided to go for the CLF instead of just swinging a sledge. I guess it's probably better just to go ahead and set up the Arsenal. but there was no card arsenaled, so what's happening? All right, there's CLF. Okay, a lot of lot of missed clicks here. So all right, let's do the channel. Plan for the worst triggers. There's a card discarded. It was a mangle. Maybe that's the part that Zach was not fully understanding. But regardless, so I guess there is no Arsenal setup available because of the plan for the worst. But now the CLF is set up, and it will make this turn very awkward for Riptide. So gonna have to basically pass through. So yeah, so just passing through, just pitching a bunch of stuff just to set up a New Horizon double arsenal. So New Horizon, of course, lets you have an extra card in Arsenal if you have a face-up card in your original Arsenal. This is definitely one of the ways that Riptide is able to push out some damage, is using New Horizon. But it just takes the time to get there and set it up. Alright, so now we see another Sledge. Pretty empty looking hand for Zach, but again, you know, you're not trying to push the damage through now, you're trying to wait until later in the game when it is a little bit more dire and these attacks are more devastating. So you'll see on this pitch deck, there's a Earth card and then an Earth Ice card, which you can use with the gloves. So ideally, by the time that your pitch deck comes around to this, you're not going to, or you're going to be able to have the pitch to the gauntlets, so that way you can get +2 and dominate on your mangle. Alright, so we're going to see a Tripwire Trap come out to block this. It does cost 2 cards still, so Adrian will take a little bit of damage here. Boulder Trap now. Wow, this is very awkward. So Adrian effectively gave up a 5-card hand in order to block that out. So just having to send instead just an empty drill shot. Not very threatening here, but it does require 2 cards. Or a D-React or something like that. We can see a -1 go out on gauntlets. Actually, I think that if you want to put a counter on something, you can go ahead and put it on the quick dodge flexors if it actually hits. That makes the quick dodge flexors much, much worse. Alright, so just another sledge turn here. And now we see a E-Strike coming out. Just to block with the Spinal Crush. Vanilla damage is not very threatening, so you can afford to take the vanilla damage if you want to, but we do see the Shelter come out now for Zach. Covers up all the E-Strike. 41 to 43 cards now. And Spinal Crush comes out for Zach, sending 9, which is 3 more than your normal Sledge. It is a Crush card, so if you block it with 2 cards, then the Crush effect is not going to go through. But we actually see a block with New Horizon here, which is not going to be enough to cover up the Crush if that's what Adrian is looking to do. If he really wants to block this, then he's going to have to block with 2 actual cards. Or he's going to have to give up New Horizon and Trench. So it looks like this is a big sticking point for Adrian here. He goes ahead and blocks with Infecting Shot and Remorseless. So 3 damage is going to get through him. And then just saves the Enlightened Strike to send 7 back on his turn. So Zach blocking with the Autumn's Touch. Very likely he has another defense reaction in hand. But it looks like no, he'll just go ahead and opt to take the 4 damage instead. Which again is fine. As long as the damage that you take doesn't really do anything to you and doesn't affect your turn, then when you're at this high of a life total, especially in a deck that has some forms of life gain as well too, then it's really not that threatening. And so there's another Oaken Old. Pitching for Sledge, coming in for 6. What a wonderful card Sledge is. Very strong. Tar Pit Trap coming out now as well too. One of the awkward parts about this matchup, I think, for Riptide is that your traps really don't trigger on a lot of things. I think I forget which trap it is specifically that triggers on attacks that have more power than their base. But it's not, it's not super impactful except on your Oaken Olds and other cards, which are going to have Dominate anyway. And by that point, I think you end up being in such a position that it's just not really enough to get that 1 damage ping. Alright, so Drill Shot covered up with the Seek and Destroy. And here's another Felling. So this is Felling number 2, I believe. The other one, I believe. Okay, yeah, so number 2. So just coming in for 8 here. What a great card Felling is. So it comes in for 8, usually. And your opponent has to put a card from their hand on the bottom of their deck. Technically, both players do, but because you get to control the effects, a lot of times you're going to be at parity, or you're going to set it up so that way it's not at parity, rather. Alright, so 2 traps going to come out now. That's going to be a Pitfall Trap, which is going to deal 2 damage, and a Inertia Trap. So Inertia Trap actually does trigger here. This is the one that I was talking about before, where if it blocks an attack with greater power. So we are going to get some pings. But Adrian's now going to be left with no cards in hand. Oh yeah, because there's a pendulum trap as well too. So just blocking it out. 1 damage is taken all around, and then the inertia triggers, which means that the card from Arsenal is going to go to the bottom. So whatever Zach was setting up is no longer there, but he does still continue to have full tempo. There's the last Felling being pitched here for the Heart of Ice. Then we pitch a Plow Under and a Winter's Bite just to swing Sledge for 6. And it looks like Adrian's not going to block this one, so finally opting to take some damage here. He looks like he's trying to push some tempo and maybe get some damage in. He is falling pretty far behind very quickly without actually having accomplished very much. So here's a Premeditate, going to load something into Arsenal. And there's an E-Strike coming out now from the Arsenal, and it's going to come in for 10. So 10 is a pretty big number. So vanilla numbers are easy to ignore whenever they aren't for a significant portion of your life total. So we're going to see a 2-card block there with a Glacial Footsteps and a Sink Below, covering up the 10 very nicely, and still taking 3 though. So there is an on-hit there, which is getting the Ponder. And then Adrian going to activate the Quiver. So it's going to allow him to shuffle some cards back into his deck, help against this potential fatigue, or this likely fatigue. And we're just going to see a CNC come out now for Zach. This, I believe, is the last CNC. Oh no, there's one more. My bad. But it does get a 3-card block there, actually, from Adrian. So it ends up being 2 cards from hand, plus the New Horizon. So pretty devastating. I almost wonder if it might have been smarter for Adrian just to go ahead and take the hit there. But whatever it was that was in his arsenal, I think we can actually see it. Oh, maybe not. Okay. So Adrian just has to pass. Here's Heart of Ice activation for Zach. Now he's playing an Imposing Visage. Typically this goes and gets a Crumble to Eternity, and there it is. So this is going to allow him to put a -1 counter on the Trench, and then his next turn, his first attack is going to get Dominate. So now that he has Trenched, now that he is Imposing Visaged, the rest of his turn is just going to be the Swing Sledge. And then no blocks again from Adrian. So Adrian sitting on a 5-card hand. Oh wait, no, never mind. Sorry, there's some defense reactions. It is Riptide, so we can never assume that it's not just no blocks. So we're gonna see a Frailty Trap first. This does not have Go again, but then we're gonna see the Spiked Pit Trap. Which I think is just blocking 3. Yeah, so yeah, there was no reaction from Zach to activate the Spike Pit Trap. So no ping, but he does cover up the sledge pretty nicely. Barb Castaway is going to turn over a Drill Shot with an aim counter. So piercing 1, but there's the Unforgetting, Unforgiving. Nice clean block here on the Drill Shot. And it's also going to allow him to go ahead and search for a Mangle. So you do have to consider whether or not you actually want to do this, because one problem with this card is that if you do block with it and you do search for a Mangle, you end up messing up your pitch deck a little bit, because you have to shuffle after you go search for the Mangle. So seeing the way that Zach had stacked his deck earlier, it looks like it probably wouldn't be the best idea to go ahead and search for the Mangle. You don't need it in this matchup. You're not trying to destroy the equipment, but he does go ahead and okay, so he went back so he can actually go search for it. So maybe he does value this. It is going to be dominated because of the Crumble, and maybe he just wants to get this Trench out of here, so that way it's easier for him to disrupt the Riptide. So we see a Winter's Bite come out now. Discard 1 or pay 1, and it's also going to require, it's going to create a Frostbite in one of these slots. So it goes in the shoes. Stepped in a big puddle of ice. And then now comes the Mangle for 8 Dominate. And this is pretty much guaranteed to crush and hit here, because you cannot play 2 cards from hand. Although I guess you can play 1 trap and then have it drop into the into Arsenal, and then play that one afterwards. One of the advantages of Riptide. But it looks instead like this is actually going to hit for the full 8, and the Trench is going to be destroyed. Adrian down to 11 life now. It's crunch time for Adrian. He really needs to put together some kind of turn, but it feels like he's been disrupted or just had to block out every turn. One of the problems with Riptide is that you have such a density of traps that it's hard to kind of balance your offense and your defense. He's going to attempt to play a Deadeye, but it looks like he forgot about the Frostbite, so that's probably a no-go. Instead, it's going to be line it up. Pitching the Deadeye. Giving you an X-Arrow +3. Gets rid of the Frostbite in the process. And then here's an Endless Arrow. So, pretty good. It's going to be 7. which is a pretty nasty breakpoint. Here's the Unforgetting, Unforgiving to go ahead and block this. And block it out. There is no more equipment with the -1 counter anymore, so you can no longer search for Mangle. So if you're on the Riptide side, maybe your game plan is actually to try to fatigue the Guardian, but that becomes a lot more difficult, I think, once your life starts to dip this low. I think if you really wanted to commit to that, you might have to just full on start blocking from the get-go, but it is hard to keep up with the efficiency of Guardian when it comes to going card for card like this, especially when the Guardian has a Sledge and you do not have a weapon as a Ranger. So here comes a double trap now to go ahead and block this. The Pitfall Trap does trigger. Zach does not have any resources to pay for it, so 2 damage does get through, but you're only sitting on 2 cards now as Riptide. And so yeah, it looks like it's just going to be a pass. Probably no way to get maybe double arrow to where you couldn't actually get both of them into your arsenal and then also shoot it. So full tempo goes over to Zach. Here is a Winner's Bite. Discard 1, pay 1. And looks like we're paying with a Remorseless. And now here comes CNC. Now that the trench is gone, this CNC is a lot more impactful. It is going to require 2 cards from hand, but it looks like maybe Adrian is deciding to just go ahead and take it here. Goes down to 5. It's very dangerous territory, especially knowing that there are 3 Oakenolds still left in the deck. So card and Arsenal is destroyed. It looks like it was a Murky Water. Barb Castaway now. You're going to have to pay with an Inertia Trap and a Frailty Trap to activate it. Oh my gosh. Playing a Codex. What do you got? Free arrows available are things like Drill Shot, Endless Arrow. Looks like he's choosing Endless Arrow. I'm going to go ahead and shoot it for 4. Pass on blocks, which means that yes, in Arsenal there is a Rootbound Carapace. We are going to go ahead and decompose to cover it up. Plenty cards in the bin right now to decompose. Alright, so 4 cards now for Zach. We have not seen any of the Oakenolds played yet, as far as I'm aware. Heart of Ice activation. Here's a Remembrance coming out now for Adrian. So this is going to help him in the fatigue battle, but I don't know if that's actually the concern anymore, looking at the life totals. I think now it's more of a can you survive kind of thing. So playing the Remembrance, we'll let him go get stuff back into his deck. He chooses Codex, Enlightened Strike, and Codex. And there's a Felling of the Crown now coming out for Zach. That's brutal. So we are going to decompose here. Adrian's only going to have 2 cards left plus the 1 card in Arsenal, which could be a trap. Going to have to give up both cards from hand, which means that 3 damage is going to get through. Whatever card this is for Adrian, probably not. Okay, it's an Endless Arrow, so it's still something, but looking at the life totals, I mean, like, I feel like Zach could probably just go ahead and just not block this and still be okay. But he does choose to give up a card from hand and block with the Gauntlets. Here's Oakenold. Fused with the Crumble to Eternity. This is not looking good for Adrian here. Even if he drops a trap into Arsenal, he's not going to be able to block this out. And so only blocking 3 here. GG says Adrian, and Zach is going to take it here. So very good stuff. Very solid game from Zach's side. I'm not sure if Adrian maybe wanted to commit more to trying to push some damage in early. It looked like he was going for it earlier on, and then kind of pivoted more to just being a little bit more defensive. Kind of got on the back foot. Even though Zach didn't have the strongest of hands, I think just having Sledge as a constant presence of 6 damage, 6 damage, 6 damage is a really big deal in this matchup. So obviously, Ranger versus Guardian has always been very Guardian favored, but yeah, it looked like Adrian lost control of this one pretty quickly around the middle of the game. So yeah, so that's it for this game. I think that we will have another one probably in about 20 minutes or so if anyone's currently watching. If not, then I'll have the VODs up and y'all can check out some of Pod 4's games. So other than that, and I'll see y'all in